Hello and welcome to another Revel Coach Conversation with your hosts and co-founders of Revel Coach, Alison, Nissen, and Marcy, Stoudt. And today we are so lucky to have Merritt Sukala with us. Just out of respect to our audience, Merritt is about to become my daughter-in-law. So I am so excited for this particular conversation. She has so much to share with us, and we have a lot to learn. So, Merritt, welcome to our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. Super excited to be here.
Can you give us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes. So like Alison mentioned, about to be her future daughter-in-law. That's my part-time job right now. But my full-time job, I'm a strategic business consultant with Paychex. I specifically work in the space with smaller to mid-sized business. About 5 to 200 employees is really where most of my clients fall. And really my favorite thing to do is help entrepreneurs turned employers really navigate their workforce, mitigate their risk that comes with managing a full-time workforce. And this can look like a lot of different things with their payroll, their benefits, workers' comp, HR compliance, really everything that falls under that umbrella, we can help. We like to say HR where you are, and can help with that entire employee life cycle from hire to retire.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to have a lot to talk about. So as you know, our audience, a lot of us are entrepreneurs in that smaller stage. Can you share with us like how the process works? So say somebody has like 3 employees and something like pretty small, but they're thinking I could go to 10 within 24 months. How do you work with them and what's the process?
Yeah, so that's why I love what I do. Our product at Paychex is so scalable. So let's say an entrepreneur has 3 employees, they're looking to grow, not really sure. Maybe they have a path to grow, maybe they don't. That's the perfect fit for what I do. So I'll have an initial conversation with them and say, what exactly are you looking for? I'd say most prospective clients I speak with, really they're thinking about payroll. When they hear Paychex, they say, okay, payroll is the first thing that pops into mind. And that's totally fine. If they're just a payroll fit right now, that's great. We can put them on a very comprehensive payroll processing platform. What a lot of people don't know is that Paychex has over 81 different services. So most of the time when I'm talking to entrepreneurs and they're like, I just want to start outsourcing payroll as I grow, I say, that's great. I start asking them questions. Well, do you have a 401k? Are you currently offering benefits? What a lot of entrepreneurs don't know is there's a full suite of benefits out there that don't have participation requirements or employer contribution requirements. So once they start hearing all of these things, they're like, wait a minute, you can do that too. And then it kind of builds into this whole package that they didn't know existed. That really cost is a big thing, but really at a cost that because we are a large company and pull them together with so many other small businesses, they're surprised at how inexpensive it can be to get all of these great benefits through a large company like Paychex.
And when you say benefits, I heard you reference 401k and things like that, financial benefits. Is it also insurance benefits?
Yes. So medical insurance as well. We work with all the different carriers. We have private health plans that we put all of our clients on after we underwrite them. So a small business today, let's say they have 15 employees. An owner can probably attest to this. If they have 15 employees on their health plan and one catastrophic claim happens, that can really raise their prices significantly, like 30 or 40%. And they just have a lot of exposure because they don't have that large group buying power that maybe a large Fortune 500 company does. So what a company like Paychex does is we pull all of our clients together onto our master medical policies. So there's thousands and thousands of lives on our health plan. And if something catastrophic happens in one group, the stability is there. It's spread out over thousands of people instead of just that 15. And so these small businesses are able to see much lower renewals year over year, much more competitive premiums because that plan is underwritten. So we don't let everybody hop on that plan. And it's just managed very well. The way I like to compare it is you can kind of have your public pool, the gates broken, everyone can just walk in and hop in wherever, or you can have that country club pool where you have to be a member and you have to check in, and it's managed properly. That's how I like to think about the medical benefits. And then outside of that, there's dental, vision, short-term, long-term life insurance, critical illness. That's a full suite of benefits too that can be expensive to offer to employees. And some business owners, they have to have multiple different vendors and different logins if they want to offer all of these types of benefits to their employees. But Paychex, it's all streamlined with one vendor, just to make their lives a lot easier.
So that's definitely, streamlining everything. That is totally key because, I have to manage my own medical in that, I go to the doctor, for example, but in order for me to figure anything out, I have to go through so many different hoops in order to figure out who my providers are and who accepts my insurance. And I feel like I'm all over the place. So I love the idea that everything's on one platform.
Yeah. As a participant of, Paychex, not an employee, I love being able to log in and see my 401k and, my flexible spending account. And like you said, Alison, I can find a provider very easily through the Blue Cross plan. It's all right there. I don't have to log into every separate website, try to remember every password that seems to have to be changed every 6 months. And it makes life so much easier from the employer perspective, but also to their employees as well, which ultimately helps, retain their employees. And obviously retaining employees equals less turnover, which less dollars spent and helps grow their bottom line.
All right. So Merritt, I had shared with you, we launched a new service offering, a new line of business, Revel Search. And as a result, we are going to be hiring a lot of employees. Some might be independent business owners, some may not be, they might be employees. So I'm going to ask just selfishly some questions for Paychex because this sounds like something I didn't realize you guys did.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as it relates to like the payroll, that makes sense. I kind of know what you do there, but do you also do some level of accounting? Is that a part of the process too? So you can set up like QuickBooks and the accounting and how the cash flow works?
Yeah. So because a lot of your line items will be running through Paychex, like wages and things like that, we have integrations with some accounting software, QuickBooks probably being the most common I find with my clients. So we fully integrate with QuickBooks Online. If a client is utilizing QuickBooks Desktop, we create a custom general ledger for our business owner. So we would just grab your chart of accounts, create that general ledger for you, and then every pay period or every month, we would give you that file that you could then import into your accounting software. Majority of our clients, of course, still have their CPA or someone that does their books for them. But we know since we're housing a lot of information, we can actually create a little accounting login for your accountant that they can't see a lot of all of your employees' information, but they have access to the reports that they need in order to manage your books for you.
Wow, that's great. And then how about expense management? Is that through the same portal?
It is. I love this question because we just revamped it. So we use ExpenseWire. That's an add-on you can add to your payroll as well. And what's really cool is we just made it so it's very intuitive. It's partnered with Google Maps, and let's say an employee, we're headquartered in Rochester, New York. So if an employee has to go from Pennsylvania to New York for something, they can just input it into their Google Maps, and it links to that ExpenseWire, so they can see exactly what tolls they took, the exact mileage, and there's nothing that they have to do from the manual entry end. So very intuitive, definitely a really nice bell and whistle that can be added to a payroll software.
That's awesome. All right. So in my head, I'm going through all my starting a new company checklist. I'm going to get you on one of these. Okay. So far, so good. What about, so like you said, HR. So you basically said what types of benefits when you're talking about employee retention, what do you serve? How do you serve clients as it relates to HR and that type of stuff?
So every client that comes on to the Paychex platform has an HR generalist that services their account. And kind of think of that as almost an extension of the company. So they're not going to be on site acting as an on-site HR manager, of course, but a lot of companies, and I know you can attest to this too, depends on the size. There's an owner and maybe he has a right-hand person that wears so many hats. It's the controller, the HR manager, the accountant, whatever the day it is, it depends. What's nice is that this HR generalist becomes an extension of the company and can help assist with mundane, tedious tasks. Like for example, state unemployment. If an employee files for state unemployment, we handle those claims for them. If a company offers medical insurance, an employee enrolls in COBRA, we send out or if an employee is terminated, we'll send out the COBRA notice and handle all of the ACA compliance and things like that can get lost or it slips through the cracks. It's like the paper pushing, I like to call it. It's not the fun stuff of HR. Fun stuff of HR is engaging the employees and keeping the morale up and the team building experience, not handling the IRS or the ACA compliance laws that seem to be changing every day. So we come in and really help with the compliance aspect. And then from a day-to-day perspective, we can help with trainings if Marcy, you find that just the morale of your company, it was great and it just dipped and you have no idea why, you can brainstorm with your HR generalist and, how can we incorporate employee engagement initiatives? Does maybe an employee survey need to be sent out? Maybe performance reviews needs to be done. These are all things we can help and educate and advise you on to get that morale up. Really anything with the employee life cycle we can come in and help out with as far as guidance.
And is that charge per service, or is that all, if you're using the HR generalist, is that included, or is that like when you tap in and there's a fee?
So there is a monthly admin fee just to do business with Paychex, and that's included in that monthly fee. So you can call them 4 times a day, you can call them 4 times a year. Some clients, it depends what their needs are.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, gonna try and get you so far. How about the legal forms? So we do have a lawyer and things like that, but if there's some, just making sure you kind of have access to the one-off legal forms you may need. Do you have is that part of the process where you have the templates and stuff like that?
It really depends on the clients. When it comes to, I guess when you say legal forms, like, do you have an example?
Yeah, it's basically like if we decide to subcontract with one of our recruiters, we have a basic form that we use right now that we've already kind of issued, but there's just always something that comes up, an addendum to something, or I don't know. I'm just trying to think of all the different things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, let's say you're onboarding, let's say you have a W-2 employee, you're onboarding, we can put, a non-compete in place or something of that nature if that's something you need, or if you have a subcontractor, or maybe you have a 1099 worker, you have to have the measures in place to keep you protective and them protected too. So we can incorporate forms in the onboarding process. As far as going over contracts and forms, probably would keep leaving that up to your lawyer, but certainly don't want me going over those. But
that's awesome. Because I do feel like there's always those legal Zooms and those other ones like those that you can do a membership to. So I was just curious. All right, so one last question, and then we'll go back to the interview of like how you actually go about doing it. So thank you for sharing this. This really is interesting. I did not realize you all did that. Val, do you do like B2B insurance? So the insurance we need, liability insurance and things like that. Is that also a add-on we could buy for you all?
We do, to a certain point. So I do have partners like, property and casualty brokers that can do more expensive policies. But when it comes to workers' compensation, that's a policy that we can write. And then employers' practices liability insurance, EPLI, that's something we write as well. Again, that covers you if an employee says, hey, I was wrongfully terminated, I want to take action against Marcy, which I'm sure will never happen. But if that does happen, we want to make sure you're protected. So those 2 policies are something we write. But as far as all of the other insurances, you would continue to keep that with a P&C broker of some sort.
That's wonderful. That's great. All right, I'm going to switch gears and go back to like a normal interview. That was so exciting. So how did you get into a career like this? So, where did it start? And if somebody's interested in doing a role like you, like how did you get started?
Yeah, this industry found me, and I'm very fortunate that it did. So I actually grew up, I'm from the Houston area. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. My parents worked in hotels, and I just grew up around that. My parents worked in sales for MGM, Caesar's Palace, and that's just what I was used to. And I thought I wanted to pursue hospitality as well. I got a degree in that. I did that for 2 years. And then I realized I was working weekends and holidays and 80 hours a week for barely being able to pay my rent. And I thought, okay, sales sounds really fun because you can kind of have a little bit more control of your income if you're good at it. So I basically applied to every job I could on LinkedIn, and a smaller company here in Houston called me back, and I worked there for about 4 years. And it's a great company. It was in the HCM HR industry. And they really taught me everything I knew. Day one, I just didn't know a lot. And I just put my head down, asked questions. I think that's so important. Especially in a new role, but in a new industry. I just hung out with the people around me that knew what they were doing. And eventually one day I looked back and was like, wow, I know what I'm doing now. So I've been in the industry about 4.5 years, and having that strong hospitality background, I thought I was going to miss the hospitality industry because that's what I grew up with, but I found I'm still helping people just in a different way. I'm helping entrepreneurs, and it's just a little bit more white collar than what I was used to. But I still find I still get to do what I love, without, physically having to bartend or whatever it may be.
Do you have a favorite story of a customer that you've been able to bring on board and get to know?
Yeah. One customer that comes to mind, they're a larger company as far as what I'm used to. They're about 200 employees. They were a biomedical company on the south part of Houston, and they were so generous to their employees. They were paying for all of the benefits 100%. The employees didn't have to pay anything. The deductible on the insurance plan was $0. Just doesn't get more generous than that, right? But they came to me because they said just their renewals every year for medical was so expensive, and they wanted to keep protecting their employees and paying for the cost, but they just didn't know how to sustain all of these increases year over year. And I ended up strategizing with them. I said, you're really generous, but if my employer was paying 100% of a $0 deductible plan, I would probably go to the dermatologist every week. I would go to the doctor every sniffle, because it was literally costing me nothing. And just putting that into perspective, you can take care of your employees without paying for everything, and kind of putting in a good plan, a better plan, and a best plan. You can still pay for a plan, just kind of getting really creative. There's employees were still taken care of, but without having to give away the farm. And the following year, they got a 2% renewal as opposed to 30%. And they were just so thankful for the consultation and the guidance from us, and just kind of showing them some other ways to take care of their employees outside of just paying 100% for them to have free insurance. So that felt really good, especially, when you're working with executives. Again, I mentioned earlier, sometimes I feel like I have imposter syndrome when you're working with really successful executives and you just show them a different way of thinking, and a year later they call you and say, wow, that really works. That makes me feel really good.
Yeah, I could imagine, because, executives are good at what they do, but when you choose not to go down a path, they're like literally blinders on, and you need somebody to, you're so articulate. So if you just explain, like, here are the options, these is what to think about, they're probably so grateful for that, just kind, insight, options, how to save money, where to invest.
Yeah, I've definitely learned to be direct with the executives and not beat around the bush, which has helped. But yeah, a lot of people I run into, if they've done something one way for so long, they're really adverse to change. And especially today, with so many changes going on with the healthcare landscape and the payroll landscape with the ERTC credits and things like that, it can be really difficult to talk to an owner who's, I hate to say closed-minded, but just doesn't know what they don't know. And that can be a difficult conversation. But to your point, I'm always here to benefit them. I don't want to take anything away. As long as they're willing to listen, we can usually come to some sort of at least a compromise to really get to where they want to be.
That's great. All right. So somebody that's listening, we don't know who, we're just making it up, but somebody that's listening is considering going from corporate America to go out and start their own company. If you were to give them recommendations, like, here are the things you need to consider first, like the initial things of what you really need. You're saying 3? Let's say 5. How many? 3
top
or 5?
3, top 5.
What are some of the fundamentals? Like Merritt, when you're speaking with them, obviously if they're going to hire employees, you need some sort of payroll system. What are like the top things you're like, make sure you consider these?
Ooh, that's a tough question. There's so much that comes to mind, but it's, I've never been on the entrepreneur side. I've just been on this side. But I mean, I think just, authenticity is so important. And when they're hiring their employees, just asking, what do you want? I mean, what is important to you? Just understanding what is important to their employees that they're hiring, because retention is everything. I mean, the worst thing ever is having a great employee and losing them to a competitor for something that you could have fixed if you had just known. So I think just finding out what's important to them and always keeping their employees at the forefront is probably most important, I think. And I think, I am in the outsourced HCM industry, so I'm biased, but I think outsourcing as much as you can just makes so much sense. I mean, a lot of companies I work with, they still have to have an office or HR manager of some sort on site because someone still has to process the payroll and click run and be there to interview and hire people. We just give them the platform and the service behind it to make that much easier. So a question I get is, sometimes entrepreneurs are at a crossroad. Do I outsource this or do I hire someone in-house to handle it for me? And you can't go wrong either way, but I think figuring that out early is important. I'm a fan of outsourcing because, Paychex isn't ever going to call in sick. Paychex isn't going to go on vacation. You don't have to worry about, someone quitting and going down the road to a competitor. I mean, I think it's very, very reliable partner that has a vested interest in keeping these entrepreneurs compliant. So I think at the beginning, just figuring out that is important and figuring out what your employees want and what they need to keep that morale up and work hard for you. I would say those two things are probably key.
That's amazing. That's so great. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like one of my favorite things about doing this every week with Alison is that we learned so much. And today definitely did not disappoint me. There's so many little pieces of this puzzle that I didn't realize. So thank you for sharing. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd say I'm big on LinkedIn. They can add me on LinkedIn, just Merritt Sukala. Also, I check my email all of the time, probably too often. So my email is msukala@paychex.com as well.
That's great.
Well, Merritt, we are so excited that you were able to join us today, and we want to make sure that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Well, really appreciate y'all having me. This has been fun. So thank y'all so much.
And we look forward to seeing you in March for the big wedding.
Yes, I know. And it's going to go by quickly. And then we will be in Florida as well. So
I'll see you next week.
Yeah. So even, a couple, I can't think of time anymore, but whenever that is in October. Alison was like, I'll see you on Thursday. I was like, what's on Thursday? She's like, we're going to that concert. I was like, oh my gosh. Yes, we are. It's already the last week of September.
You have been listening to another Revel Coach Conversation. Today we are with Merritt Sukala. We are very glad to have spent this time with you. Revel Coach is a collaborative platform that builds leadership programs for entrepreneurs, coaches, executives, and authors. For more information, visit us at revelcoach.com and follow us on LinkedIn to never miss an update.